You've selected a show from the Podcast Jukebox, a DIY podcast network.
Hi, and welcome to Off the Cuffs, a kink and BDSM podcast for those in the lifestyle and those who are curious. Topics contain explicit adult material, so if you're under 18, please ask a parent or guardian for permission. After all, podcasts don't have safe words.
I think everything is like good.
I'm like shocked because I feel like the last time we recorded, when we first moved like a year ago, it took like an hour.
Yeah,
Yeah, that took a while. I remember that.
I was really thorough with double checking all the wires and doing everything and making sure that we got everything like set right and moving everything.
We've been doing it for like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The only thing that's not really done is we have to put up sound foam on the other side of the wall. So we're actually in like a weird little cave now. There's like we're up in an attic and there's a little tiny alcove that's what do you call it, like triangle shaped, like the ceiling comes down. There's not even room for me to stand up in here. So I
can stand up though.
Yeah. But you have bonked your head a lot. You're going to give yourself a concussion.
I've bonked my head at least like 40 or 50 times so far in the past week.
It'll get to be muscle memory eventually and you'll be fine.
Yeah, it's cool though. There's no one above us. It's like pretty quiet on our street at this time of the day.
Yeah, it's pretty great. But it might sound a little hollow and echoey. I'm not sure. We won't be able to tell until we go to edit, but should be good. And also, if we sound exhausted, we are.
Yeah. Very low energy.
That's fair.
Yeah. It's just been like unpacking and unpacking and unpacking. We did a moving session that started at 11:30 a.m. and didn't end until 5 o'clock the next morning. Wasn't that?
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I hate doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we essentially moved for like 30-ish hours with about a 3 or 4 hour nap somewhere in there in the middle like of the morning at some point. And yeah, we're never not hiring movers again. It was insane.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
For sure. What's so weird is that we're recording this episode so out of order that people are probably going to, if we leave this in, people are going to be like, wait, they moved again? Because this probably is coming out in like 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from the future or from the past, hello, everyone.
Hello.
By then, I'll already be in the middle of grad school and probably half dead.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
All right.
And you'll have new heart batteries.
I'll have a new heart battery or I will be dead on the operating
my
table.
God.
So, yeah.
Oh.
I don't know if that information's even come out on the air yet. So, I mean, at this point in time.
Well, it will have by the time
it will have by the time it's released. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love confusing people with our timeline of events.
So much fun.
If you can follow it, more power to you.
Great. Welcome to Off the Cuffs, episode number 282. I am Minimus Maximus.
I am Dick Wound.
And I'm By Daily.
And we are joined tonight by Magic. Hello.
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 How you doing?
I'm here. I'm awake.
That's probably the
great.
general vibes of tonight.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So if we, I don't think we're gonna quite fall asleep on you here, but like we're pretty beaten down, a little sunburned, and a little our muscles, the lactic acid in our muscles is
depleted.
Or it's on fire. So
yes, but excited to be in front of a microphone again.
Yeah, very. It's been. Well, actually, it's only been a week, so but it feels
like longer.
It feels like much longer. Yeah.
Well, for me, it's been a month and a half, so yeah.
Yeah. And who knows when the next time will be, even though some of those episodes might come out before this. Again, confusion.
Oh, we got to stop with this confusing timeline.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, if anyone watched Loki, we're dealing with variant timelines here. So.
This is nothing. Yeah.
Alligator Loki.
I liked Loki.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it
I'm
was great.
only halfway through episode 2, so.
Oh no.
Okay. Oh, it's
no.
good.
But I've already had so many things spoiled for me.
I got so you know about like if you have spoilers and spoilers for everyone else, you know about like the love thing or no?
Yeah, I know about the love thing. Mostly the like everyone being like, okay, Loki's a submissive in this situation. This right here, look at this. The hands behind his back, the looking down, he's a submissive.
Oh, yeah, I saw that meme.
Yeah. No, well, aside from that bit, just the whole concept of having a variant of yourself that is like that you're attracted to was so hot to me.
Yeah, I haven't seen it,
Yeah.
but that aspect makes me want to watch it.
Yeah, when I saw that, Dick, I did think of you.
Yeah.
It's basically just the whole question of, would you fuck a clone of yourself?
Right. Yeah.
Right, sure.
You know what though? It's even better because it's I don't know. I can't, you know what? We can't, this isn't a Loki recap show. I'm not gonna do it, but I want to. But yeah, I definitely have thoughts and feels about it.
Potentially a bonus episode on Patreon.
Oh yeah, we could potentially do something
That'd be
like that.
fun.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, let's get down to business. But before we get into talking to magic and all the wonderful, wonderful magical things that you do, I just want to give a quick, very quick, brief housekeeping update. We're not doing any Patreon shout outs for this episode because, again, you know, the TVA sucked us into a different timeline and blah, blah, blah. The Patreon content that's coming out this week, we don't really know what it is yet.
Because it's 2 months away.
But let's say it's probably going to be a photo set, or maybe let's say it's going to be a wild card.
Yeah.
So it might be a photo set. It might be a video. It might be, I don't know, Gwen farting on Vinny's decapitated head.
Sure.
Who knows what it'll end up being?
There will be things on Patreon that are probably sexy.
Yeah, there'll be things. They'll be sexy or weird or both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, fuck the rest of the house. There is no other housekeeping. With all that out of the way, God, it's like I forgot how to podcast. With all that out of the way, Magic, would you be kind enough to give us and all of our listeners your radioactive spider bite into kink?
I am so excited to. So it's one of those things where like I'm pretty sure I've always been kinky.
Yeah.
My family moved a lot when I was younger and like went on road trips a lot. And one of the things I would always do is I would stare out the car window and I just either like watch everything going by or I just start fantasizing. I also started puberty like super young. I noticeably hit puberty when I was like 10.
Mm-hmm.
So at least a year prior. And there's always those like copse of trees by like farmland.
Mm-hmm.
I would see those and I would have the thought of like, oh, that'd be a good place to fuck without having that language. But I'd basically fantasize having sex in those like sections of like trees of like, oh, that'd be a good place because it's like hidden enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about those things. And then I would sneak into my mom's room and I found all of her like bodice ripper novels and I would read those unbeknownst to her. That's one of the few things, you know how parents are just like, oh, we know you're doing this, but like, we're going to pretend you don't. That's one of the few things that I genuinely think she doesn't know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got unfettered access to the internet as a 12-year-old.
Oh boy.
Nice.
Oh.
Can relate.
And I very quickly found my way onto Tumblr, onto Literotica, onto fanfiction.net, and I didn't watch porn until I was almost 20 years old,
Mm-hmm.
but I read a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I read a lot of comics, and I ended up finding a link to like kind of a master post of self-bondage tutorials from Tumblr that went to FetLife before FetLife required you to have an account to look at any part of the website.
Sure.
I think I was like 13 or 14, and I started doing like self-bondage when I was 13 and got really into that. I was just like, this is fun. Because it was very like physically stimulating. And when I first got a job, I would have like rope harnesses under my clothes while I was working.
Mm-hmm.
And I very I very quickly like learned of like all the different places of like, okay, there's an actual community to do this, but I'm not old enough to be part of it. I almost went to my first munch while I was still technically in high school because I was like, I'm 18, I could technically go, but I should probably wait till I graduate.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because the age limit was 18 in my local area. And so I went to my first munch a week after I graduated high school.
Nice.
And just like dove headfirst and tried to explore as many things as I could, took a break, came back and dove headfirst in again and found the leather community and discovered that I'm I hate to use the phrase like heavy masochist because like it's subjective.
Yeah.
But like
Sure.
figured out I was a very heavy masochist and into some very fucked up things. And learned a lot more about my preferences. And now we're here. Just me basically constantly doing kink shit. Somewhere
Nice.
along the way, I started doing sex work.
I have a question about in the time that you were like younger, before you were 18 and you had found, say, some like written porn, like literotica and all that stuff. Did you do any research into like kink stuff as far as like kink safety or kink practices, or did that come after you went to a munch and like met other people in the community?
Oh, that came after I went to a munch.
Okay.
I actually have carpal tunnel because I was not safe with my self-bondage.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah, I was just actually curious about that because I know that typically, or you're a bottom, but you also like know and understand a lot of the practices of topping, even though you don't know how to practically implement them. It seems like you took a lot of time studying about like safety and all that. So I wanted to know if it was something that, have you just been like a lifelong thing you've been studying, or if it was something that came like when you got in the community, you learned like, oh, I have to research this stuff now.
Yeah, it really only came with the therapist I was seeing in my last couple years of high school. I was very lucky to have a trans therapist in the middle of Kansas.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah. I love the man to death. He's Jewish and has an amazing beard. And I was very lucky that he was open with me discussing the things that I wanted to try, as long as I didn't like go into specifics. That would, because he warned me, he was like, if you go in too much into specifics about certain things, I may have to like contact the state. And I was like, noted. Because I had been doing things with folks older than me like by a year.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Right,
sorry,
yeah.
that confused me for a sec. I was like, like, oh, that's a really kink shamey thing, but no, I get it now.
But he had me read the new topping and the new bottoming book when I really expressed interest when being involved in the community when I turned 18. He was like, read these.
That's cool, yeah.
And that's kind of where like me researching started,
Mm-hmm.
but nowhere near as in depth as I have over the last like 2 years.
Yeah.
Great.
So I know that a lot of what you get up to, you consider to be like edge play. So can you tell us a little bit about what it is you get yourself up to?
So I really love basically getting curb stomped.
Oh, yeah.
I love getting kicked. I love getting punched. I love being thrown onto the floor. It is incredible. With one of my friends, actually, we've been having conversations of the first time we can actually meet in person, I'm going to black their boots, and then they're going to like kick
Scuff
me
them
around
on your face.
basically
Amazing.
with their newly blacked boots.
Yeah.
And in the past year and a half, I discovered I am very much into blood play.
Nice.
I actually have a paddle with carpenter tacks in it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting sensation of like it going like full force into my ass and then it getting pulled out, because you can like feel, because you can feel it getting pulled out.
Yeah.
It's very weird. Super into blood play. Just before quarantine, I learned that I am super into fear play.
Nice.
Because I did a scene with Devin Stone actually just before everything started getting shut down, a knife and fear scene in which is actually ended up being inspiration for like half of the fan fiction I have written in the past year. Just from that fear scene alone.
Yeah.
That's great.
So it's not really like super often that we get people on that are into fear play, or if they, or I don't know, maybe some people are, but we don't always have someone in the hot seat that we could be like, tell us what scares you.
Yeah.
But what does fear play look like for you? What really gets you going with that? Yeah.
So the 2 scenes that I did with Devin, because thus far, like, my only experience has been with him, which I am allowed to talk about these.
Okay,
we
cool.
both talk about them pretty frequently. Is a lot of death threats. Weirdly enough, that scares the piss out of me, but on a regular basis, death does not scare me.
Yeah.
A lot of death threats, threats of mutilation, and threats of like exposure.
Like in the vein of like blackmail?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because like being involved in academia, it is kind of a big deal because I could potentially be dismissed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I was thinking for a minute exposure, like being left out, tied to a tree in the cold. Like
maybe that too.
To be honest,
that too. That's terrifying.
Well, everything you're talking about, I'm like, oh, you just sound like little me. Like you're like, oh, I like to get beat down. Oh, death scare. Oh, this, and then you're like, and I'm like, I've thought about being tied to a tree in the middle of winter. Like, sure.
I mean, that too. That's especially terrifying to me though, because like I have something called Raynaud's, in which regular cold is physically painful for me. If I hold like a normal ice cube, it feels like what holding dry ice would be to someone else.
Oh wow, that's a lot like you. You have a lot of like temperature things.
Yeah, it's different, but I like that. I actually kind of this probably is very insensitive, but I wish I had that because instead of what I have, because
if there was a way to just like trade, I would give it to you.
Yeah.
Just like, please. My hands are forever cold, even in the middle of summer.
Yeah. Yeah, mine is more about like my heart just can't regulate my body temperature, so if I'm in too cold for too long, I turn completely purple. And I mean it could kill me, but I mean I don't, I'm not out in it like long enough to have it be a thing usually. But that sounds really like cool, like just to be like, oh, because you could really like, I mean, especially as a masochist, like you could probably really play with that and have someone use that against you.
Yeah, it's something I've not like really played with a whole lot, just because like it's something that I deal with on a pretty regular. Like I can't hold cold drinks.
Yeah.
So it's really frustrating on most instances.
Yeah, I get.
I haven't really found someone that's like down to play with it in terms of like this. We might be like 30 seconds into the scene and I call it.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me to hear the other ways that people go about fear play. I've been thinking about this more because I think we're doing an episode on it coming up soon. So I've been kind of thinking about what I might want to do.
Wait, is it coming up soon or did it come out a couple of weeks ago?
I think it actually is coming up soon. I might be totally wrong though. It might have already came out. But anyways, it's interesting to hear that your form of fear play has to do with like threats and blackmail and things like that, because I feel like that's not where I come from it at all. I'm more into like jump scare type. Like that's where mind goes to, where my mind goes to, because I can't really like force myself to do the mental gymnastics it would take to believe that a partner was going to like actually do the thing that they're threatening me with. Even if like a knife is being held above my eye or something, I still don't actually think that person is going to do it. So it's like hard for me to get into it that way. But we just moved and our new bathroom has a window like right inside of the like shower tub area. It's like a big window, and it got me thinking about you like dressed up as like a horror movie murderer and popping up while I'm showering. It would be so fucking scary. And that's again like, Dick, like one of my biggest fears is like windows or doors at night and things like popping up in them. Ever since we moved here, that's something I'm like really interested in playing with, even though it sounds so scary. I want to do it. But yeah, that's really interesting.
The jump scares thing, It's interesting because like I can like for me the idea of like doing a jump scare is just no, because like I deal with panic attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also just had the thought of like with my new heart problems, that's probably a bad idea.
Oh man, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm just weirdly the type of person who's like, oh, like that's a thing, let's use it. Like before I was saying like, oh, you could do that. I was, you could do it. Not that you should do it, but you could do it.
Yeah.
Max, what were you going to say before? Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying about the things like blackmailing and, that stuff. I've played with that, and that's a lot of fun because that really is, I think it's the opposite of Gwen's thing where, like, that stuff really does scare me.
Yeah.
In a very real way.
Yeah, I guess I don't have a lot to lose either. My job is already sex things. So, like, what are you gonna... I mean, I'm sure there are things you could blackmail me with, but yeah.
Well, it was before... Like, I think I played with that a lot more before we started doing Off the Cuffs.
Yeah. Kind of loses the fear factor when your picture is all over a sex podcast.
Exactly.
I mean, also, though, I think part of the thing that plays a role in it for me, too, is that I have really bad anxiety and just everyone scares me already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can relate.
Again, love that. Would play with.
Yeah. No, that makes...
it all the damn time.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense to me, and I usually can't handle a lot of that kind of thing either, but I think it's like just on the edge where it's not so intense that I could play with it and probably work on my fear, actually.
I think so, because especially the way that you present your kinks, like a lot of your stuff, not to put you on blast real quick.
Go for it.
But a lot of your, I guess I am just, I'm going for it.
Roast me.
No, a lot of the things that you're into are real insecurities of yours that we play with in a controlled environment.
Yeah.
And like self-worth stuff, this and that and the other thing, like a lot of that stuff is stuff that you have thoughts about, like in reality, like not kink related, but then we like lean into them for kink purposes, and you're like, like,
anxiety, disgust, death,
all that stuff.
Just love jumping right into the deep end with it.
So I think I definitely think there's something to that for you.
Yeah,
for sure. So before we get too deep in, did you want to take a minute to talk a little bit about some of the adult content that you create?
Yeah. So most of the stuff that I've done recently has been kind of fetish stuff, as I'm trying to get into like more doing fetish type things, because that's more of what I'm becoming comfortable with, and it's easier to do it on my own. But most of the stuff I've created has been kind of like masturbation stuff. I've done some cigar smoking stuff.
Nice.
Nice.
I have a series that I'm working on right now. It's like domestic service type thing of where I'm cleaning in a like 1950s like housewife outfit.
That's great.
That's most of what I do. I post like, they're all videos ranging from like 5 minutes to 30 minutes. And that's mostly what I'm doing right now. And something I'm getting into is doing like erotic ASMR.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's basically just like dirty talk and kind of scenarios. And I'm working on scripts for those right now, and I'm hoping to have them like put together to start doing them in like September, October. Nice. So that's mostly what I'm doing. I'm trying to like branch out and do more stuff that's also like queer porn for queer people.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but every time we have a content creator on, I feel like you ask questions about Magic.
Oh, okay.
Ask questions about content creation.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I'm always picking brains, being like, because I've kind of done a little bit of everything. A couple months I was trying to do stuff as an escort. A couple months I was trying to do like pro femdom. And I've dipped my toes in a little bit of everything, trying to figure out what I want to do. I've also completely nerfed my career like 2 or 3 times doing all of this.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm basically starting from scratch again. At this point, I think the only things I haven't tried is stripping and being a professional sub.
Nice.
I'm curious if you don't mind answering, because I guess I've had kind of a similar journey, but probably in a shorter amount of time, where I was just like kind of struggling to find my identity in sex work. Like don't want to be a pro dom, and I don't want to fully be a submissive, like as a presence either. And I like Dick actually kind of helped me land on like being a fetish model and doing fetish content. And I found that I like absolutely love doing more niche fetishy content.
Yeah.
And it helps me like find more things that I'm into. It's just like a lot of fun to make, but I don't know, I've had a harder time like finding an audience for that kind of thing, because like doing fetish work, I feel like unless you're specializing in one specific fetish, it's such a wide variety of different things that I've had a harder time finding like audiences for that thing. Like for example, the like mouth soaping video is going to be like completely different from something else I make, and so it can be kind of difficult to like sell on OnlyFans pay-per-view where it's just like a wide variety of different people.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, do you have any advice on that?
Oh, flipping the script here. Flipping the script here. All right.
So, from my experience thus far and from what I've seen from other people, is just keep making content that you like to make and post in multiple places and have it tagged accordingly.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff I have up on my clips for sale is it's mostly fetish content.
Right.
Like the one I can think of that is like most that I have a couple that are just pure masturbation, but they have a fetish element to it. Like 2 of them were recorded in public places. 2 of them that I have posted on there were recorded in a church.
Nice.
And yes, it's an actual church that are recorded in.
Nice.
I am forever proud of that. And the quality of the video isn't the greatest, but I am forever just proud of like getting to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Say getting away with it.
Wait.
Yeah, getting away with it.
Can I ask real quick, where were you in the church? Was it like in the sanctuary or like?
Oh, I was like right up at the altar.
Ooh, nice.
Like right in front of the altar.
Love that.
That's fantastic.
But yeah, like I have like things tagged near obsessively. I think of every kind of fetish category I can. Because subscription-based sites like OnlyFans OnlyFans has been iffy from the beginning, and I tell as many people as I can to get away from it.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Especially with all the shit they're pulling now. But that's a whole different rant I could go on.
Yeah.
Yep.
But with fetish content like that, it's just get it posted places where fetish content is popular and tag the hell out of it.
Yeah.
That's usually how people find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think my main thing is just needing to get on more platforms, because I haven't been doing this for very long. So I've just kind of been getting my bearings on the different platforms and all that. But so hopefully it'll work out better once I have more time to work on that.
Yeah.
I hate using clips for sale, but there's still one of the most popular sites to get fetish content, so I still use it out of pure reluctance.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot
their
more
interface.
niche stuff there.
Yeah. I was like a real clips for sale like stan for many years. And I actually recently have become a ManyVids convert.
I love ManyVids so much. They have their problems, but it is so much easier to use.
The interface is amazing. The
interface on the ManyVids is better.
The fact that you can re-download your purchases whenever is
I was going to say,
a game changer.
I think I've lost everything I've bought on clips for sale because of the inability to re-download it, which is really unfortunate because I had some good porn from there.
They finally threw us a bone, and you can actually very difficultly go on and find your purchases and stream them.
But you can't re-download
you can't re-download them. It says downloads expired. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Damn shame.
Yeah.
I will say though, like in real life, Clips for Sale was very good to us. The couple times we went to Exotica.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I still really like the site. I really like I think it does have the most variety. It's great.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean I'm not saying like I'm not going to use it. I'm just saying.
No, but I'm having said that, I think you're right on ManyVids, the interface being much better, and the fact that, they store your downloads,
Yeah.
that is a game changer.
Yeah. I've actually repurchased a couple of things that I lost from Clips for Sale.
Oh, really?
On ManyVids, because I was like, if another hard drive gets knocked off of a desk. Remember a couple of years ago, Lexi knocked my hard drive off of,
yes,
and it had a bunch of home recordings, and it had a bunch of porn on it too. So,
yeah.
Anyway, I'm not bitter about that anymore.
Yeah.
No, I'm just.
One other quick cool thing about ManyVids, because we just started one, so I've been learning more about it.
Yeah.
Me, Dick, and Lexi have one now, but I didn't know that they had a store where you could sell used clothing, which is awesome. I really want to do that.
Yeah.
I also have it set up so folks can send money for me to get specifically buy stuff.
Yeah.
Or because I also, something else that I have up there on there that I've been meaning to put up there. I can't remember if I have is selling Polaroids.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's been a back coming trend. I know a couple of my friends who have different sex work, who work off of different sites, have been doing the Polaroid thing for a little bit.
I've always wanted to do that. I've never had anyone bite on it, but I wish more people did, because I love taking sexy Polaroids.
Yeah.
That's awesome. The fact that still exists is amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think that they make a little thing now that you can kind of take pictures with your phone and then print them as Polaroids. They're not actual Polaroids.
No. There's a lot of folks that will do that.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of
But
Polaroid
there's something
printers.
to be said for authenticity.
Yeah, but finding an actual Polaroid, do they make Polaroid cameras anymore?
Most people these days use Instax.
Yeah,
cameras.
they'll use Instax.
Okay.
That's what I have.
Yeah, that's what we have.
I have
too.
I have the Instax Mini. So I have the little tiny rectangular.
Okay. I remember when I was about 20 years ago, I got a Polaroid camera, and I remember the film for it was $40 for 5 pictures.
I used to have one too. It was the same deal.
Yeah. So I figured they had just gone the road of obsolete at this point. But
the film still isn't cheap.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as expensive, but it still isn't cheap.
Yeah.
I found out a couple of years ago that they stopped making Kodachrome film. That was a little disappointing.
Oh yeah? Did it ruin the Paul Simon song for you?
Not at all.
Hey there, friends. We're taking a quick break to tell you about one of our sponsors for this week, Silk Arts. Silk Arts is owned and run by Matt Heft, a former tattoo artist of 15 years. He's now brought his obsession with perfect line, contrast, composition, and shape into the adult toy industry. Silk Arts focuses on sculptural toys, innovative ergonomic handles, and high-end customer experience. They offer a huge variety of toys, such as fantasy dildos, rose-shaped butt plugs, and custom toys that are all made with body-safe platinum silicone. Silk Arts aims to bring you toys that are pleasing to the eye and that you'll want to display on your bedside or mantle. Each piece is carefully handcrafted and given the attention to detail that it deserves. You can find Silk Arts at etsy.com/shop/silkarts. That's SILCARTS. You can also follow them on Instagram and Twitter at Silk Arts. Thanks, and back to the show.
So I know also that you recently found out or discovered that you have autism. And
yes.
I kind of had a couple of questions.
Is that why I'm here?
That's why you're here, Max. That's why we brought you back for this one.
We brought in the expert.
Wow.
No, that's probably horrible.
Yeah.
I'm totally joking, I promise.
No, you need to get a couple of dirty jokes under your belt. It's fine. No. No, Max, it just worked out that way. But
okay.
But let's just say yes for the joke. All right. Yeah.
Right.
That's why you're here. Mm-hmm. All right. Anyway. I kind of had some questions about navigating kink, understanding that now, but also, I kind of wanted to backdate the question almost to, did that have any kind of aha moment in I guess just your entire like upbringing or relationship with kink and you know, did it kind of like open your eyes to being like, oh, this is why I had hit walls with different things at different points in my life up until, you know, coming to that understanding recently. Did that make sense? Did I do that?
Yes, that made sense.
Okay.
And absolutely, like, something that I have been having to do recently is basically reprocess a lot of trauma I went through.
Okay.
Sure.
Because I'm sitting here realizing that was a problem because I didn't understand because I'm autistic.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, lots of relationships that I had no idea what was going on or why it ended, not understanding what was going on.
Magic?
Yes.
This is going to take you're going to spend about a year doing that?
Yeah, I figured it's going to take me a while.
Yeah. At least I did. I went through like my entire life that I could remember and, you know, filtered it through the fact that I was autistic after I was diagnosed. So, yeah. It's going to take a while.
Like, just kind of like going through everything like, wow, that happened because I'm autistic.
Right.
And realizing like some of the struggles, because like I definitely have ADHD. Like we're certain I have both ADHD and autism. I have the double whammy, and just going through is like that happened because I had ADHD, and that happened because I like have autism, and that happened because I have both.
Right.
And it's kind of not my first rodeo because I got a late diagnosis for ADHD as well, so I've already kind of done this. But it just sitting there being like, I lost all these friends because I was autistic and I didn't know it.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing for me, because it's caused a lot. One of the things that I have as a side effect of being autistic is I always say it wrong. Alexithymia, I think is how it's pronounced. And basically it's basically having a hard time understanding my own emotions or connecting to them.
Yep.
And it's like, when I felt comfortable opening up, being like, hey, I really don't know what's going on in my own head right now. I don't understand what I'm feeling, and it's going to take me a while. I always took too long, and I didn't have any way to explain that, why. And so they just got annoyed and left.
Right.
Sure.
So dealing with that, and because it's even affected my relationships in my kink community. There are quite a few people that I have a very strained relationship with in my local community that I may not ever be able to fix because I'm leaving in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So just kind of dealing with that, and like also realize when I message some of my friends that are also autistic being like, hey, so my therapist and I had this conversation. We're pretty sure that I'm autistic. Almost all of their responses were, yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
Yep.
Yeah.
And all of my friends that I've had for like extended periods of time, they're also autistic. That was the only way I could keep friends, if they were also autistic. So it's been an adventure just figuring things out. A big thing that hit me recently was, do I like impact because I like impact, or because my system is looking for stimulation? That's the biggest thing, because the whole thing with stimming, putting like having pressure on myself is one of the biggest like ways that I stim. I'm literally sitting under 2 heavy blankets right now in the middle of summer, because of like having that weight on me makes me feel comfortable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So the like getting stepped on, I'm like, is that an extension of that? That's been my most recent thing.
Yeah.
I was going to say I like being stepped on, and it really is. It really is a stim thing for me. I like the way that feels, the pressure, you know.
Yeah.
Feels.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. I know that there's, I guess on like the opposite side of the coin, there's a lot of sensory play that you can't do due to like getting sensory overwhelm. I guess I'm curious, like, how do I phrase this? Like, do you know of a reason why some intense sensations appeal to you and not others? Or is it kind of a thing with like, I guess I'm relating it to like a textural issue with like different types of foods where there's not necessarily like rhyme or reason why like slimy foods might be gross. You just like have an aversion to them. Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm gonna pull a little bit of my psychology degree into this.
Nice.
So something that I've noticed in just like speaking with a lot of other folks that are autistic, or looking at research, is that a lot. So there's the idea of stimming, and for folks that don't know what stimming is, it's a way in which like someone who has autism like moves or expresses themselves to regulate their system, whether it's like, and it's usually related to emotions. So there's the idea, the most common form of stimming that people probably recognize is when someone with autism like does the flappy arm thing,
Yeah.
or like flappy hands, and so some folks will have like stims that are related to different emotions. So I definitely do the flappy hands, but they're very different depending on whether or not I am happy or angry. It's usually like a physiospatial thing is what stimming is supposed to be. And it's usually in response to things that you can't filter out that are overwhelming. Regulating the body is a physiospatial thing, and things that are overwhelming are often incoming stimuli, not stimuli you create. Because my brain can't filter out background noise, I am constantly aware of like all the background noise. Like I am aware of the cars driving past my house right now, despite having headphones on.
Yeah.
So like so it's creating stimuli in reaction to stimuli I can't control, basically. So stuff like that, in kind of a controlled environment, I can play with, which is still very interesting to me. Because I simultaneously hate knowing what's going to happen to me during a scene. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that makes more sense to me than I realized.
You're speaking my language.
Well, no, I mean, Max, you and I have talked about this before, and I have like some like physical, I just call them tics, like that I do, and I'm like, oh, like I always described them as like a reset. This is my reset, or like this is like my thing. It resets my brain, and it's usually like it's a hand motion, but it's not like a flappy hand motion. It's more like a like.
They're usually accompanied by a grunt or a noise of some sort.
Yeah, they're accompanied by that noise and like a handshake and like a Anyway, but like. But like I actually like I'm like, oh, I noticed that I do. The reason I call it a reset is because I usually do it when I'm like when I'm trying to focus on something and I'm like deep in thought. And I wonder if it is to like block out external things. Like now that you're like saying that, I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. Like just thinking about myself and
I can actually see that, because even if like more than one person is talking to you at once, you usually like do some sort of physical movement and like kind of like shake it off, and then you're able to like focus.
You're right. I put my hands up and I shake and I go.
I just did it.
And and I go, stop. You first.
Yeah.
Now you. And like I direct the like I'm like I can't handle it any other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting. In the past year, I've kind of found myself like heavily relating to a lot of autistic traits, and I honestly just don't have the money to go through the process of like getting officially diagnosed, nor the time at this moment. So I kind of like, I struggle with like claiming that as a part of my identity, just because it's not like literally set out in front of me as like, this is you, which is a thing that I struggle with. But a lot of the people close to me just kind of operate under the assumption that I am, because it helps.
Yeah.
And it helps me like cope with things, and like it helps my communication vastly just for people to like operate under that assumption. But related to the sensory overwhelm and sensory play, like I found that I kind of like to play with having my senses like super overwhelmed. Like I either want it to be like really intense and multiple sensations going on at the same time, or like nothing.
Oh yeah, I definitely, one of my favorite scenes was I had 3 people topping me all at the same time, and they were just doing kind of like teamworking a lot of things, but like they were just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna go. It's like one person was like, I'm gonna go at this while you're going at this, and And I think their most dastardly concoction was like the insane zipper that they had like all over me. The insane amount of stimulation that came with that was like really nice, but at the same time, like it was also very overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I feel like for me, once it gets to the point of like super overwhelming, my brain just turns off. And that's nice. Yeah.
I definitely take advantage of that because that happens to me too. Like once things are like to a point, that's one reason why, even though I really want to play with like forced orgasms and like genital overstimulation, I don't think I would actually enjoy it because I'll just be like gone. I won't actually be there to like feel the sensation.
Sure.
And like, so it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I'm curious about all of your thoughts on this. I often wonder if I've never really understood why kink and fetish stuff is taboo, even though like I understand logically that it is for a lot of people, or that's just like a thing that people don't talk about a lot, even if they are involved in it. And I wonder if like I don't understand why kink is like taboo or like quote unquote weird a lot of the time. And I wonder if it's because like I'm lacking social skills or if like I don't understand societal norms. I'm just wondering if anyone else has like had this thought or
So I've definitely had that thought because there's also been, I can't gain access to the actual papers because I'm broke. And so many things are behind paywalls. But there's a lot of evidence that folks on the spectrum are more likely to be considered, like, I can't think of the phrasing that they actually use, but like sexual deviants, or like they're more likely to be into kink.
I know the paper you're referring to.
Yeah.
But they said there might be like research bias in that because it might be that folks on the spectrum are more willing to talk about their sex lives because they don't understand the social.
That's interesting.
And I also have my own personal opinion of why those are why kink and like fetish is considered taboo, but that is a whole rant.
Yeah.
It's basically a whole rant about Catholicism and white supremacy that like we could be here for hours while I'm talking about it.
That sounds like Patreon content to me.
It does.
But basically, yeah, like most of the folks that I talk to, I have not met someone who is autistic who isn't at least a little bit kinky.
Interesting, yeah.
Sure.
Every single autistic person I have ever met is at least a little bit kinky.
Can I qualify that?
Yes.
The autistic people that I have met that are not kinky are ace.
Wow.
Fair.
Why is that, Max?
I don't know. I just, I don't know why. Everybody I meet that's autistic is either kinky or ace.
That's interesting.
If I had to advance a theory, I'd say maybe to some autistic people that identify as ace, sex is just a system they have no interest in.
I mean, as someone who is all three, sex is basically just stimming for me.
Sure.
Like, I get that it's intimate and I like the intimacy that can be involved with it, but I would say 90% of the time when I'm masturbating, like, it's just stimming because it's just, it's like self-soothing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Wow. A lot to think about in this one.
I'll do that if I'm not thinking about it. I mean, especially when I was a kid, like before I actually started masturbating, that was one of the ways I used to stim. It was just, hand down the pants.
Oh, for sure. I got in so much trouble for it all the time.
Right.
Yeah, like last night I had my Hitachi just like kind of like, I was laying on my side, had my Hitachi just kind of like shoved between my legs, and I was like on my phone scrolling through TikTok. Just not even like, not turned on, not the slightest bit. Like, and then at one point I think I started reading webtoons.
Wait, what's Webtoons?
It's like online comics. It's one of the apps that a lot of like online comic folks will post their stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, like I am very rarely turned on when I am jerking off.
That's interesting. Now I'm like just thinking, I'm like, am I usually like, maybe I don't know. Now I have to think about that.
You know what? I'm thinking about it too, and sometimes I am, but not always.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'll start like turned on, and then I think, though this might just be because of the ADHD, but like I start turned on and then my brain just wanders to different things that aren't necessarily sexual, and I just kind of keep going.
I'm going to say something really weird here, and I might not have like evidence to back it up just yet, but just like dawned on me top of my head. I feel like my masturbatory habits are more rooted in OCD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could be.
And
that's a possibility.
I've never, ever, ever thought about that before. But like, I think I'm more bothered by the fact if I don't jerk off on a day because I didn't do it that day than any other thing. Like that, like I feel like it bothers me in the same way that like if I don't do another, like if I don't give into another thing would bother me. Like it's that same pit of the stomach feeling.
That's
that
interesting.
I get, and I've never ever associated that before.
Well, not to mention that you jerk off pretty much the exact same way every time. Like physically, like you kind of have a routine that you follow.
I do. It's
pretty much every time.
Yeah. Oh, it's
very
very
ritualistic.
Yeah. Which unfortunately, I just had to change because my old like jerk off / recording chair is it wouldn't fit up here. So.
And now all the listeners know that you always jerk off where you record.
Yeah, I did. Well, I still do, but now I'm in a folding chair, and new routine has been well, what I think is probably going to be the new routine is I kind of spread my legs and I wrap my feet around the legs of the chair. So it's almost like my feet are tied to the chair.
Oh, interesting. I haven't seen this yet.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll see it soon.
Yeah, because you used to sit like crisscross applesauce in like a big chair.
Yeah,
always.
Crisscross applesauce and sideways.
Yeah.
Almost like the chair was like Santa Claus and I was a wee babe.
A wee lad.
In his lap. saying what I wanted on this white Christmas. And by white Christmas, I mean... ropes of cum.
Oh my god.
Wow, you think highly of yourself. Ropes.
Do I? I thought I was just being gross. I don't know.
Amazing. No, yeah, that's so
God.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to put more thought into that before I really make that as a definitive statement. But I'm thinking about it now, which is something I never thought I would, but yeah.
I'm more inclined to consume like not safe for work content when I'm depressed. I'm sad horny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've gotten there, but that's not my like routine, I think.
I feel like that's often my routine. Like you'll even tell me to go jerk off to feel better a lot of the time.
Yeah. I was gonna say that, but then you beat me to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what say we move on into the listener questions? Max, you got them pulled up on over there?
I do.
All right.
Okay. First one is from friend of the show, Lauren.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey. She says, as a neurodivergent person myself, I have difficulty interpreting social cues, and while safe words and other overt signals are very much a thing, I've noticed that a lot of kinksters tend to put heavy emphasis on recognizing subtle reactions when it comes to telling whether a scene or dynamic is going well or not. Do you have any advice for people who struggle with this?
Be blunt as fuck and tell them, like, if they're new, you don't have to disclose that you're neurodivergent, if you don't want to, but be blunt as fuck and be like, hey, because I don't know you, there's no way I'm going to pick up on, like, subtleties of whether or not you're, like, doing okay or whether or not you like something, so you are going to have to tell me based on how, like, you negotiate. It's like, so if you want to stop, you need to safe word. You need to say something because I will not recognize it.
Yeah.
I'm an oversharer, so I will tell people like right out the gate of like, look, I'm neurodivergent, I'm autistic, I won't know.
Yeah.
So you have to tell me. And I'm just blunt. And if they don't like that, then boo-hoo, they don't get to play with you, and you can find someone else that is willing to work with you.
Yeah.
Like, it sucks, but just be blunt and tell them, like, look, this isn't something I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of struggle with people paying attention to subtle reactions as a way to tell if a scene or a dynamic is going well, because I just kind of have a lot of uncommon responses, I think. Like, when I'm experiencing pleasure, it looks like I'm in pain from what I've been told, which would be very confusing to someone, like, trying to interpret subtle reactions as a way to know if it's going well. I think even when we started like playing together, that was like a conversation that we had that I had never had before, just because I hadn't experienced it. But yeah, maybe I have had that conversation before where people have been like, "Are you okay? You like look like you're in pain."
Well, I know I started off when we started off playing. A lot of times, I think I've talked about this on the show before, but a lot of times I won't play with safe words in the first couple of scenes with someone, and I don't mean that in like a bad way. I mean that in like I don't want to have like a scene built in a way where you would have to use a word to pull out. Like, I don't want there to be so much like fantasy build up or like role play build up into it. I want to like kind of like treat the first couple of scenes as like R&D and a lot of constant checking in and a lot of constant like, no, don't use a safe word, just say stop. I'm not like, we can talk about eventually you begging me to stop and me not doing it if that's like what we want to do. But if you say any kind of negative whatever, I'm going to stop and then we're going to check in like, for the first couple of times. And like, let's not worry about having to remember a safe word or a thing, because we're getting to know each other and we're getting blah, blah, blah. And then I work that stuff in later. And again, not trying to say don't play with a safe word in that other way where it's like, no, just fucking blah, 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 blah. I'm saying like overly, being overly precautious. And that's sort of my method of like getting to know people. And even just what you said about, your reactions are what they are. I mean, that's why I do that, because I play with you or I play with, 10 other people. Your reaction to the thing that I do isn't necessarily going to be the same as it is to 9 other people. So like it's about getting to know each person individually and how and what their responses are. So if your responses are atypical, anyone should be able to learn them as long as you learn, put in the time to like you learn a person, it's not learning people. Like no one is good enough to just like read what people can, but you can, by negotiating
and
with
communicating.
And communicating with one person, learn what their body is and what it does and what it is. And like, that's the sort of overarching thing that we talk about when we say like, get to learn and do those things. Like, don't listen to someone who automatically out of the gate is going to be like, I can tell what you are. Like, no, that's bullshit. Like you have to take the time to learn that. And anyway, I just thought that was relevant to tack on.
Yeah. But like also thinking of you mentioning the kind of like what you consider like a different, like atypical kind of response is there's been some research that shows that folks with autism don't necessarily have problems picking up social cues. It's just they have a different social cue. So folks interacting with other autistic folks, they know very little to no miscommunication. Whereas it's like interacting with someone with autism interacting with a neurotypical person, there's miscommunication because it's different styles of communication and different kind of reactions to things. It's not necessarily like not being able to pick up social cues. It's just they're different social cues than what's expressed already.
Yeah, I've found when I talk to neuroatypical people, they are a lot more likely to understand the point that I'm trying to get across. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay, our next question is from Shrinker Belchin, who says, realizing I'm probably autistic, I'm in the diagnosis process, so that's exciting, has helped me a lot. One of the things I started doing is using communication skills I learned for and through kink for almost every interaction. I struggle a lot less because of the things I learned while engaging and reading about kink, though I'm struggling to articulate an actual question, but I'm sure y'all know what it would be.
I think that's pretty cool. I think what Trinker Belchin's saying is that they've been applying like kink skills to everyday communication.
It helps me a lot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's helped me a lot too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Applying kink skills to like everyday communication has helped me significantly, especially since so what I'm going to grad school for is museum studies, and I'm going to have to be schmoozing a lot of rich people to give me money and like my future career. Just like, here, you wanna donate to the museum I'm working at? You wanna buy like works of art from the gallery I'm working at? Please give us money. I'm gonna have to spend a lot of time what's called masking my own autism. I'm gonna have to pretend I'm not autistic. And some of the kink skills that I've learned have helped me make it more manageable. So I can do that, and people are just like, oh, you're such a good communicator. All of my communication skills I've learned from kink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've also noticed that kink has really helped me understand power dynamics in everyday life. This is something I've talked about before, but like after being in a kink dynamic where it's very clear and communicated and explicit, like I am dominant and you are submissive or something like that, it's just kind of helped me realize the more nuanced, subtle power dynamics in everyday life.
Yeah.
No, yeah, when someone so one of my biggest fantasies that I enjoy is professor student. It's always one of my biggest fantasies.
Same.
And I was always told, and I had the understanding that something like that is wholly unethical. I always like knew that, but I didn't understand it until I got into kink and started understanding like relationship dynamics. And one of my friends explained to me, is like, look, I know you want to be in a dynamic with me and in a relationship with me, but because I am one older than you and I have more pull in the community, you need to understand that I already have this innate power over you. It's like, and because I also have more knowledge in terms of like the kinks that you want to try out. And so like having that sat down and explained to me, that was like when I kind of made the connection of like, that's why it's unethical outside of like they could change my grades type thing. That's why it's frowned upon.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Like just being like, we're two adults rather than seeing the reality of, or like the nuances of a situation, I guess. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, that's like even stuff that we talked about like when we started, because we have a pretty big age difference. Like,
yeah, that's kind of
us.
what I was thinking about. It was like a very similar conversation.
Yeah.
Do you have a problem with my opinion? I'm sorry, am I speaking too loud? Speaking too loud? Speaking too loud? It speaks to your soul.
Hey guys, Just E here on Off the Cuff. Do you like what you hear? Then go check out my music. Out on all major platforms now, including Apple and Spotify. So you want to know more? Type in Just E Please on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, and you'll find me.
I bet you never guess just by looking at me. I'm a lady in the streets, but a freak in the sheets. Can you take it?
Okay, the next question is from the Super Pupper.
Hey.
Hello.
Who says, what are some tips you would like to give someone who is neurotypical to help people who are in the scene?
This is going to run in the theme of my advice, but get over yourself. Because when autistic folks are being honest, they're often being told they're being rude. And then when they're sugarcoating things and beating around the bush, they're often praised for being so honest and so vulnerable and willing to talk about it. And when they're full on like lying about something, there's really indifference to it. It's almost expected. So when you're working with someone, like when you're going to play with someone that's autistic and they say something that you feel like you ask for honesty and then they sound rude or blunt, they're being honest with you. Get over yourself. If they say something that is offensive, like in that like instance, then okay, yeah, they're being rude and offensive and you need to call them out for it. But if they just bluntly say what you're asking for, don't be upset with how blunt it is. I've run into that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I have a eternal fear of people thinking that I'm like a bitch or that I'm like a mean person because of this.
Honestly, same.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And another thing along with that is understand a lot of folks, especially people assigned female at birth, that are autistic, because there's the societal standard of like being nice, being all of the bullshit misogynistic shit that comes with being born female. Is they're also expected to not display being autistic, and there's a lot of tendency for them to be people pleasers. That is something I'm still dealing with and like trying to get over and like work through. They will be people pleasers. That is something that they will struggle with, and be aware of the fact if you're getting into a dynamic with someone that is autistic that is still working through those things, they're going to have a very hard time, and you need to understand that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, next one is from Mossy Omega.
Hey.
Hi.
Who says, "Hey guys, I've got a few questions with some background info for each, so please feel free to take them one at a time. One aspect of my autism is that I can go nonverbal sometimes. I can also have trouble focusing if one aspect of a scene goes on for too long. Do you struggle with anything similar? And if so, what do you do in order to make sure the scene is fun and accessible to you?"
I definitely struggle with that. I will frequently tell dominants in advance of like, look, I can talk in instances in which like if you're asking for like a check-in, I can give you an answer. But don't always expect that answer to be a word. It may be kind of like an affirmative sound of like it's like, hey, are you okay? And it's like, it's not, I may not respond with a word. I may just nod my head, and be aware of that. Because for me, nonverbal isn't necessarily like not being able to make any sound. It's not being able to form words. But I know that's different for folks. So that's something I definitely talk with tops beforehand of like, hey, I might go nonverbal. That's not a bad thing. That's just I'm autistic thing. With the kind of like mind wandering thing, I personally don't have a lot of issue with that because a lot of the folks that I've played with, I have been very lucky in that they kind of have a variety of like how they do things, so they won't do something for too long. And there's usually multiple implements, or like they're using the same implement in different ways. But if that's something that like is a concern for you, definitely talk to the top beforehand of like, hey, if you're doing the same thing for too long, my mind may wander and I may not be connected with the scene anymore. So try and bring some variety into it. Try and bring like multiple toys into it. Something that I will do with most of the folks that I've seen with is they open their play bag and they're like, okay, which toys are you open to today? I select all the ones and I'm like, okay, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with it. There's usually at least like a dozen because I'm bad at decisions. But from that like pile that I basically selected from their play bag, they then pick like a couple from that they'll use on me. And it's usually a variety of sensations. So even if they're all stingy toys, they're like different kinds of stingy. And just intentionally trying to work variety into your scene.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And then